There are more slaves due to the Arab imperialist move that went to America.
Today on our college campuses, young people who like Marxism, all of these things, and still they're charging Israel with this claim of
Colonial.
colonialism.
It's been made taboo to criticize anything Arab or Islamic. I remember one very poignant story of this woman who was impregnated by her Arab master, and she wondered if her husband was going to love her. Hundreds of thousands of black people who were forcibly converted to Islam, they are
Right.
owned and traded and bred like animals by Arab Berbers.
Welcome back to another episode of the Black and Jewish podcast. My special guest today is Charles Jacobs. He is the co-founder of the African Jewish Alliance. Charles, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
We have a really big topic to tackle today. We're going to be talking about the slave trade in Africa among the Muslims and jihadists and all of the work that you have been doing, particularly in Sudan. But before we get to that, I really want to hear your story about how you grew up as an American Jew in the United States and what joined the civil rights movement and what that time was like during that time.
Sure. Um, I'm a whole lot older than you.
Just a little, not a
No,
whole
no,
lot.
no, no, like triple your age. And so when I grew up in Newark, New Jersey, which was Jewish, and then turned um, more and more black people came to live in Newark, New Jersey, and so it was kind of a toughened place, and
Mm,
and that was good, and that was good. My parents are were they passed away. They're Jewish and not religious at all. But their religion was human rights, civil rights, Democratic Party. They weren't, I wasn't quite a red diaper baby because they weren't communists, but they were pretty far left.
okay.
And mostly due to the feeling of what happened to us was really bad just 10 years before. And so we have to stick up for all people who are victimized. And so I recall um, my dad once furiously left a meeting where somebody said the N word, and I didn't know what that was. I was a little kid, and he just stormed out of the place. He said, "We can never do that. We're Jews, right? We can never say that." And he just really broke a friendship. And so I was shocked, and when I grew up in my junior high school, I had black and Jewish friends, and and in those days, I want to tell you, Elizabeth, New Jersey, there were huge fistfights between working class whites and working class blacks, and in those days, sometimes the whites won. So that things
Interesting. So they could
well,
fight.
they could fight because it was a white working class, right? They were Irish, and I mean, they were doing that. And then I went to college, and I naturally joined the NAACP, right? Helping this was during the civil rights movement, the '60s. Martin Luther King was a hero of mine. Eventually, my mom's friends were in a labor union, and they took a train down to Washington, D.C. to the Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech march. And I went with
Mm,
them. And I was
wow.
there with the 100,000 people there. And if you play that speech again to me, you will see me tear up. I mean, that was the most amazingly
Charles,
wonderful thing.
can you take us to that day? What was the atmosphere like that day? Like how did you feel?
I was
And
like
like what was
16.
the energy?
I was 16 or 17 years old. We went down on the train. There were all kinds of signs. There was black, white people. It was all nice. It was very exciting. I couldn't believe how many people were there at the Washington Monument. I couldn't believe how many people were there screaming and singing and this and that. It was like a revolutionary moment, right? And
Mm,
I'll never forget it. Um, and when he said his thunderous words, I mean, I don't think there was a dry eye in, among the hundred thousands that were there. So it was a really important moment in my life. Um, Fast forward, um, I went to Brandeis University. I was getting oh, when I was in Rutgers, Newark, in undergrad, this was the time when people were joining the civil rights marchers in the South.
Mm.
And they were asking, so I had a teacher who was a very activist teacher, and she asked for volunteers, and I raised my hand. My mother wouldn't let me go. Um, and it was true. You remember there was like these two Jewish kids and a black kid who were killed. Mickey
Yes.
Schwerner and Michael Goodman were killed, along
Yes.
with I forget his first name, but Cheney, the black kid.
Yeah.
So that I look back, that could have been me if my mom would have let me go. So you
What
never
kind
know.
of impact did that have on you during those times?
Well, I mean, we just were absolutely certain that America had to change, that America had as Martin Luther King said, you made a pledge in the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence about what kind of a nation we're going to be. It's time to pay the pledge. It's time to do that.
Mm.
We can't keep living in a place where, some part of our people were less than others. That just didn't. I mean, everybody knew inherently that was wrong. I think even the racists knew that that was wrong. Um,
Mm.
and so we just
But when
we
those type of murders or
oh
incidents
wow.
were happening, did at least in your family and the community, did you guys feel a sense of hopelessness or did you feel like,
No, no,
okay,
no,
we're
no,
gonna
no,
keep
no.
going?
No, there was no hopelessness. This was an inevitable historic development that was happening, and we were all pushing the ball forward.
Wow.
That's what we were doing. We were not going to let this Now, it was easy for me to say I was safe at home in Newark, New Jersey, Elizabeth, New Jersey. I mean, I wasn't on the front lines there,
Hmm.
but that that's how we felt about it.
Wow. So then you went to Brandeis University.
I went to Brandeis University. I became a very far left-wing person, like many of our clan have gone through.
Yeah.
Um, and then, I actually wanted to see the working class have a kind of a revolution because
Mm.
I saw all of the bad things I thought at the time of capitalism. I once worked during a summer in a factory it was a bakery that made cookies, and I sweated to death, and I hated it so much. I think that maybe made me more of a neo-Marxist than anything, that cookie factory thing. But
Right.
anyway, there I was, and so I went to Brandeis, and I became this leftist, and I speak Spanish, so I helped lead rent strikes in Cambridge,
Mm.
Massachusetts, in a Puerto Rican neighborhood because I was speaking Spanish. So that was my contribution to the left wing cause. I was leading rent strikes. I was writing things about rent, et cetera, et cetera. Then all
Charles,
of a
what was
sudden,
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
then all of a sudden, um, even though I wasn't religiously Jewish, I did I was kind of what they would I was a Holocaust Jew in the sense,
Mm.
not a Moses Jew, not a Bible Jew, but a Holocaust Jew in the sense that I was nightmares about the Holocaust, and I read books about it, I saw movies about it, and when the left in the late 60s and 70s turned against Israel, I got
Mm.
I got furious. I got
Mm.
furious. I mean, they were telling me, well, the Arab working class and the Jewish working class, they're going to join together and fight off the British colonialists. And I knew that was just some foolish, foolish thing. Never could happen. And they were against Israel, and I left. I left that part of the movement.
So even then, so in the 60s and 70s, there was this. colonialist charge against Israel. And then
Yeah,
we have today on our college campuses
right.
leftist young people who like Marxism, all of these things. And still they're charging Israel with this claim of
Colonial,
colonialism.
right. Which
As
makes
someone who was,
absolute no, it makes no sense because colonialism is you have a mother country, you're England, you
yes,
send your guys over to India to suck out, to dominate them and to suck out their natural materials for you. You steal their stuff, right? There was
right,
no mother country. The Jews didn't have a mother country to be sent from. They went to their mother country because we were there before Islam, we were there before Christianity, we were there. So this business about colonialism is just a made up left wing propaganda thing, right? Where are we
Charles, from your
supposed to go?
experience of being on that side before,
Right.
w- can you help us understand our students today who take this position? Like, why are they so attracted to like the Marxist idea? And w- like, what would you say is at the root cause
Okay.
of them being against Israel?
That's a very, very good question, and it's not simple, but let me give you a thumbnail
Okay.
sketch of what I think it is. Okay. So in America, you have people who are pretty well off compared to the rest of the world. I mean, even our poorest of the poor live better than kings in the past. You know, even our poorest of the poor have big screen TVs and iPhones, and there's no starvation in America. We're doing good. And when the middle class looks at TV and sees people in third world countries and who are not doing as well, right? Okay, it's a complicated reason why they're not doing as well. The left says to all of America, you're doing well because your society stole their stuff and you're dominating them and you're
Mm,
imperialist and you're colonial. That's the only reason why people in South America, Africa, in Far East Asia are not doing as well as you. And the left has been browbeating the West, America, and Europe for decades now. We're bad because we have stuff. Prosperity is a sign of illegitimacy. Prosperity is a
mm,
sign that you're a thief, right? The only way
mm,
you could have got it is because you stole it from somebody else, not because you invented this capitalist system that just produces great medicines and stuff. So um, I know my own daughters. I mean, they grew up in a middle class suburb. They come down for breakfast. They open the pantry. They see manna from heaven. They see,
right.
anything they ever want. It's right there for them. They're not like the farmer who's got to worry about the rain and the seasons, and they don't have to stoop labor. And they got it all. So, in a way, they feel, and it's true, they feel privileged, right?
Mm,
So the left comes and says, instead of thinking that you're lucky in life, that you're lucky and you're blessed. I mean,
right.
religiously, I mean, Christianity used to say we're a blessed nation because we're a religious nation and God is smiling on us, and that's why we happen to invent capitalist systems and stuff that makes wealth. But the left kept saying to these people, you have to feel guilty. You have to feel guilty. First of all, you stole the land from the Indians and you had black slaves.
Right.
Bingo. It's on you. Okay. In Europe, uh, you were colonialists, you were imperialists. Look what you did in Burma. Look what you did in Africa. You stole the money, you killed people, you enslaved people, etc. Okay. It's never, hey, wait a minute. Everybody had slaves. I mean, the Romans had slaves, the Greeks had slaves, the Hebrews had slaves, the Muslims had slaves, the Christians had slaves. Everybody had slaves.
Was
But
not
guess
a new
what?
idea in America.
Yeah, guess what, though? The only civilization that stopped slavery was the West.
Mm,
We're the ones who stopped it. We figured out, oh my God, we got to do a big one of these and we got to stop it. And we did, right? So we don't get the credit for doing any of the good things, but we get the guilt for doing all of the bad things that our past relatives have done. So if you're a middle class person in America What you going to do with all this guilt? Well, you're not going to
Mm,
give the land back to the Indians.
no,
You're
they're
probably
not
not going
calling
to.
for that.
Not calling for that. People are calling for reparations, but when you actually ask them, well, do you want your money to go to people who have dark skin but didn't happen to be slave? No, no, not really, not real. So you're not. There's nothing for you to do except that the left has given you a horse to beat, the Jews, because
Mm,
they say, well, there is one country in the world that is still colonialist and imperialist and apartheid and
mm,
racist, they say. So you, to be a virtuous person, so you can't do anything else. You can't make up for what your own people. The only way you can make up is to stand with the oppressed, darker skinned people and attack Israel and its Jewish supporters throughout the world. So this is the big
mm.
lie, and it's working. And it's working better than anybody ever thought it might work because it's all foolish. It's all based on lies, and we can go through the lies. I mean, Israel, the, I mean, we're called Jews because of Judea. Where do you think that
Right,
comes from? Right? It's
right.
from we're there. That's us. We're the only anti-imperialist, anti-colonialist movement that succeeded. We actually took back the land that people stole from us. Right? So
This is true.
we're the revolutionaries who took back the stuff that people stole from us. Uh, we are not white. I mean, we got killed in Europe because Jews were not white, right? That's
Charles,
okay.
can you talk to me a little bit about how Jews became white? I mean, my understanding is after the Holocaust and coming to America and assimilation, etc., that some were fighting to be able to, put on a census. They didn't want to have to mark Jewish and they wanted to be able to mark Caucasian. And so they were able to assimilate a bit better, more than like someone black, because, we just stand out because of our darker
Right,
skin. And then all of a
right.
sudden, Jews were white. But for all of European time, and when they first got to America, they weren't deemed as, Caucasian white people or treated as such either. So was this charge of like Jews being white, is this part of assimilation, or what would you say this
Well,
came
there's so
from?
many things. There was many things. I mean, Jews were hated always, forever, by a
Right.
lot of people, always, forever. So we kind of ducked, right? So and we wanted to assimilate to the cultures that we were in. But we always knew we weren't white, and other people
Right.
knew we weren't white. I mean, we were Jews. We couldn't get into golf clubs and country clubs, and there were neighborhoods that Jews couldn't buy apartments in. So we always knew we were Jews,
Yeah.
and we have lighter skin than black people. But I got to tell you, in Israel, that's not the case. In
No, it's
Israel,
not.
in Israel, half the population comes from the Middle East, where through, you want to know, through rape, and through, how did Jews ever have red hair, man? Because of the Cossacks raped us, How
Right.
did Jews ever become darker skinned? Because they were in Muslim dominated regions and they had, um, so in Israel today, half the people are as dark or darker than the Palestinians, right? And that's
Oh, for
never
sure. And
right
darker. I mean, there's black
and
Jews
darker,
there. You know what
right?
I mean? Like,
And one of the best things anybody could ever do when I go to Jerusalem, I go a couple times a year. You get on the train. In order to get on the train, you got to go through. It's deep, deep, deep down. It's a deep, deep down train station, like deeper than the Gazan tunnels, like deep, deep, deep on an
yes.
escalator. And you get on the
Yes,
escalator.
yes.
You get on
And
the
it's a
escalator.
scary one, right? Because it's
It's
so
a, it's
like
pretty, it's
steep.
very steep, but you
Yeah.
see the people coming up, right? And you could see a panoply of Israeli faces. That's the Rainbow Coalition, man. We got blacks, we got whites, we got guys with beards and payas, we got girls with nipple rings, we got everything.
Yeah.
So I don't want anybody to tell me that we're one. We're not a race. We're not a
Right.
race. We're a tribe of many races.
Right.
So if anybody's looking for a rainbow coalition, go to Israel, walk down the streets.
Charles,
I want to come back to just finish my own story here
oh,
because
yes.
it's gonna take me to where you want me to go. Okay.
Yes.
So I found out in the 80s and 90s that people are starting to turn on Israel. I live in
Mm,
Boston. The Boston Globe was like B-52 bombs every day. The Israelis did this, the Israelis did this, the Israelis did this, right? And I said to myself, why are they picking on us? Are there no other things in the world that they're looking past to point their, it's a finger point, the politics of finger pointing, right? Now, you got to know that the very definition of anti-Semitism is treating the Jews like you don't treat other people, right? The best example of this was uh, there was a president of Harvard in the 40s, and his name was Lowell, President Lowell, and he didn't like Jews. And the Jews
mm,
at that point were getting into Harvard because they were allowed and they were talented and they were getting and he didn't want so many Jews. So at one very famous meeting, this is all public, he said, you know, we got to do something about the Jews because they cheat. They cheat.
mm,
Right. So somebody who's also very famous, a judge called Leonard Hand, who was on the board of Harvard trustees, said to the president, "But you know, Protestants cheat too." And the president of Harvard said, "But we are talking about the Jews."
oh,
That's it. Why are they talking about the Jews when you put everything else out, singling out the Jews? That's what anti-Semitism is. Okay, that's a
mm,
really good, easy way to see what it is. Okay,
mm.
so
How,
I one
Charles,
day,
how did anti-Semitism rise in the Black community? I'm really interested in this. Obviously, the show's called Black and Jewish,
yeah,
but I really want to know what took the wrong turn from Black and Jewish unity in the civil rights movement
right,
to where we are today. Black Lives Matter, we know,
right,
is very
right.
much against Israel, supports Hamas, even though tons of liberal Jews supported Black Lives Matter as an organization. But since you were there before and you're still here now, Baruch Hashem, thank God, what was the trajectory of the decline of the relationship?
Okay. So this happened because the left convinced the blacks that they ought to unite with the Palestinians. And it also happened. I mean, look, one of the main causes of anti-Semitism is envy. We do well,
Mm,
right? People
mm-hmm.
don't like people, envy is in the human heart. It doesn't reside in any color or any religion. In fact, it's one of the seven deadly sins because
Right,
people who think about improving human nature and human conduct and human behavior, they think about the flaws in the human personality, and envy's a big one, right? We all got
right.
envy. We all have to teach ourselves. You should be glad that that person did okay. If he got it, if what he has came through his own effort, you should be glad, not beat back the Yetzer Hara, we say, right? Beat
Yes,
back
yes,
evil inclination in yourself. So envy is a big thing in people who don't have as much in general as another group. So we did well. So there's envy. But if you want to know, if anybody really wants to know about how the answer to your question, they have to learn about this man Dumasani Washington because he
oh
writes.
yes. I had
He's
him
a
on my
he,
show.
Okay, he's written books about this. He's written books about all the things that Jews did for blacks. I mean, and I read his book. I didn't even know. I mean, it was, pretty unknown Jewish philanthropists who were sending lots of money and setting up schools in the South to teach blacks who had just come out of Jim Crow to read. I didn't know that. Plus, we marched in the civil rights. We were leaders in the NAACP. We most of a lot of the law cases came from Jewish lawyers. So we were arm in arm with our black brothers. So what broke that?
Yes.
So a couple of things. Um, Stokely Carmichael is the name that I would know.
The
Maybe your
Black Panther
generation.
Party.
Yeah, yeah. So this was the leftist communist idea to get. Let me step back. The communists lost. They thought that the working class in the Western world was going to rise up and have a revolution. Didn't happen. The working class was shopping at Walmart. The working class wanted those TVs. They wanted to work hard and do the best they could for their families. They did not want a revolution. So the communists were very disappointed. So where they go to? The third world. They
Mm,
changed their complete idea. Marx would have died if he knew what they were doing with his book, right? They changed their complete ideology to say, well, it's the third world that are going to be the revolutionaries, so we got to teach them. What are they going to teach them? That white people are the ones who kept them down. That you
mm,
are where you are in Africa today because of only because of white people. Even though the whites left a long time ago, right?
mm.
Whatever. So this ideology got spread into a black neo-communist movement, Black Panther Party, right? And it got more and more. Eldridge Cleaver was an important guy. I actually voted for him for president when he ran for a write-in president.
Wow,
Yeah, yeah.
Charles.
But I know when Eldridge Cleaver went to the Middle East, he found out the truth and he said it, and he had gotten a lot of trouble with his own base. But anyway, so there was that, and then there was Farrakhan. Now we had a big fight with Farrakhan, which I'll get to.
Please
Farrakhan,
do. I had someone on the show
yeah.
who comes from the Nation of Islam, and he
Oh,
said
yeah,
Farrakhan, he stands by this. He says Farrakhan does not hate the Jews.
yeah, right. The synagogue of Satan, he said. The
Yeah.
Jews. I mean, just watch his face when he says Jews. I mean, he says terrible things. Anyway, okay, let me do it this way. Farrakhan's thing is that he wants to convince blacks in America that Islam is the pathway to freedom. That's what he wants to do. And he's as a Muslim, from the Muslim point of view, he's using any kind of black anti-Semitism there is from envy, any kind of black anti-Semitism there is from this communist notion that the Jews are colonialists and they are killing dark-skinned people called Arabs in Palestine. Uh, he's using that. He's using that, and so now I have to go ahead because I'm going to meet up with Farrakhan. Here's how I do.
Okay.
I found out I was sitting on an airplane. I was a management consultant. I was sitting on an airplane reading a magazine. In those days, way back, the stewardesses would roll the magazine cart because nobody had iPhones, nobody had computers. She'd roll a magazine cart down the aisle, and so I picked up the Economist magazine, and on page like 47, a little article. You can buy and sell black women for $15 in Sudan and Mauritania. And I said to
Wow.
myself, wait a second. I'm a Martin Luther King guy. How can I let this happen on our watch? On
Yeah.
our watch, you can buy and sell black people. So uh, I didn't like my management job anyway. I really wanted to be a writer. I always wanted to be a journalist or a writer. So nobody paid you to do that much. So I had to be a management consultant. But I thought I got to dig into this. So I went to the library and I went, those days they had microfiche, something like you never heard of, but we didn't
No.
have. Okay. Um, but I found these articles. And then I called up a guy I knew in Amnesty International. I said, do you guys know about this? He got back to me. He says, yeah, we report on this. I said, but nobody knows. It's in the back of your files. You're not doing anything with this. Send me the stuff. And then I met people from Mauritania and Sudan who lived in New York City
Wow.
and whose people were being massacred and enslaved by Arabs in Africa. And I said, whoa, whoa, nobody's talking about this? And then I got interested in it and I co-founded with a Mauritanian Muslim named Mohammed Atiye. And I can show you. We broke the story in the New York Times. Charles Jacobs and Muhammad Atiye. We formed the American Anti-Slavery Group. We wrote an article called Bought and Sold, where we documented that in Mauritania, Hundreds of thousands of black people who were forcibly converted to Islam. They're Muslim, black Muslims, Minister Farrakhan. Black Muslims, right? They are
Right.
owned and traded and bred like animals by Arab Berbers. And nobody cares.
Wow.
And if you call Amnesty International, yeah, they'll send you an article. Yeah, we got that. But
Why
it's
does Farrakhan not, he never addresses
well, wait,
slavery?
wait, wait.
Okay,
Not
we're
only
gonna
didn't
get
he
there.
not, okay, wait. So we found, no, this is a very exciting story. We found, so we put together the Sudanese in New York. I said to them, is anybody helping you? Do you knock on doors of churches? Do you? Yeah, nobody wants to help us. It's too controversial. People are tired of African stuff, you know, um, compassion fatigue. That was the word of the day, compassion fatigue. And I went to the Muslim guys in Mauritania who lived in New York, and they said, nobody cares about us. Who cares about us? So
Mm,
there was one black reporter. He's a blessed man. He unfortunately, tragically died early of brain cancer, but his name was Samuel Cotton. He wrote for the second largest newspaper in New York, black newspaper in New York called the City Sun. And he heard about me because I was on TV with the only black TV station at the time. It was called Tony Brown's Journal. And Muhammad Atieh and Charles Jacobs, a black Muslim and a white Jew, right? Together,
right.
we're talking about the tortures that were documented of what would happen if you were a black slave in Mauritania and you happen to be uppity and displease your master. I can't tell you what these tortures are because you'd have to change this to X. You'd have to change. It was so
Mm,
horrible. It was just so horrible. It's just like horrible. So the Nation of Islam. Oh, so Samuel Cotton saw this and he wrote a 5 part series that was on the front page of his newspaper, Arab Masters, Black Slaves. I can get you all this
wow.
stuff. I have photos of this. I can send you this. You could put it on the. So Farrakhan went berserk. Why did Farrakhan go berserk? Because his whole thing is to convince black people in America that Islam is the way of to get to freedom. Well, not in Mauritania, it
Right.
ain't. No, it was didn't help you at all. In fact,
Right.
there are black Muslim slaves today. There's hundreds of thousands. Just anybody Google Mauritanian slaves. There's hundreds of thousands of them there. And if you displease your master, they'll put little tiny insects in your ears and cap them with stones and tie your
Oh.
hands and throw you in the desert until you go mad. You know, that's one of the tortures. I don't want to say the other ones. So that's happening today. Today. And nobody, so why don't people care about this? So anyway, so Farrakhan got really upset and we caught him. He went to a press conference about the Million Man March he was doing. And the New York Times reporter asked him, hey, why are you denying there's slavery in Sudan when everybody knows there's slavery in Sudan? And he screamed, if you think there's slavery in Sudan, you go send your reporters. So a couple of guys went from the Baltimore Sun, which was a big paper. They went to Sudan with our allies. They redeemed several slaves, which I'll tell you how we do that. They came back and they wrote a 5 part series. Minister Farrakhan, you're wrong. Then he ran away from the issue because he couldn't defeat the truth.
So he never made an official response to the 5 part.
Not to that. Not to that. No, he did not make an official response to the. But he said, this is a Jewish plot to, against Islam. This is a Jewish. I have Muslim partners on my board. What are you talking about? It's
Right.
not. It's not. So I would love to have you interview some former slaves because we
I would love to. Are
yeah.
they so okay, first take me through how you redeem slaves.
Okay.
And you were redeeming them where in
In
Sudan
Sudan,
or
in Sudan,
okay.
in Sudan.
Okay.
Okay. Okay.
How does this process work?
Okay. So the Jews are supposed to be the imperialists and colonialists. Well, let me tell you, Islam started as a dot in the desert in Saudi Arabia, and it took over all Africa in a couple of hundred years. It just rampaged through Africa by the sword, by this, by that, and it converted an awful lot of black people to Islam, and it subjugated the ones who wouldn't convert.
Mm,
Okay, and enslaved them, and enslaved them. There are more slaves due to the Arab imperialist move than there were that went to America, that went to the West. There are more
wow.
slaves on that side of the equation than on this side of the equation. And it's
Mm,
still going on. We stopped it, but they're still going. So Sudan is Africa's biggest country, and in the north it was dominated by Arab Muslims, and in the south was black Christians.
okay.
Okay, there was a declared jihad. A jihad means that the world is divided between the Dar el Salam, the place of peace, which is in the Muslim world where they control, and the Dar el Harb, the place of war, which is what they don't yet control. So a jihad is moving the line from one place where they dominate to a place where they don't yet dominate. They declared a jihad. They stormed African villages. Let me tell you what they did and what I witnessed, or I interviewed the people who were there. No different than what happened to the Jews on October 7th. It's the exact same thing. They stormed the
Mm,
villages, Allah Akbar, they kill innocent people, and they rape the young girls, and they capture women and girls as sex slaves. That's what happened to the Jews on October 7th, right? But I
mm,
saw this already in the early 2000s when I went to Sudan. I saw that jihad on the blacks was happening then. And so when I heard about October 7th, I said, "My God, it's the same thing, and nobody knows it's the same thing." Except the Africans know it's the same thing. So
right.
so what happened was they took hundreds of thousands of women and girls as sex slaves. And they didn't want the men because they didn't want men slaves because it wasn't like here where we had cotton and to pick. You didn't need black musculature. All you needed was the womb of the woman to keep growing your civilizational Islam. That's what you needed. You didn't need the men. You just so they killed the men. They killed the men,
Wow.
and they just took little boys. They took as goat herds, and we actually worked with one who I'm going to get you on your program, who was an escaped slave, Francis Bach, very famous. Um, so so they took the women and girls. We worked with a group in Switzerland called Christian Solidarity International, who helps Christians persecuted around the world. And the bravest guy in the world's name is John Eibner. He was the head of this movement. He convinced some Arabs who lived right at the line, the border line, to have a peace treaty with the blacks in the South. So the blacks in the South would let them trade their trinkets in markets and let them graze their cows on the the wetland of the Dinka tribe, the black tribe, which is called Dinka. And in return, um, the Arabs could sell their market stuff, and there'd be some tit for tat, right? So
Okay.
this line right there of the Arabs nearest the blacks, they didn't want any jihad. They wanted peaceful relations. We got those guys. Well, Christian Solidarity International, John Eibner got those guys to go up north and buy back or steal or find missing slaves, bring them back. We raised money to pay for them, like it was $40 to free a person. And
Wow.
England and Christian
When they had
Solidarity.
to when they had to steal a slave, was
Yeah.
this like a secret mission?
Yeah, yeah. And they took some, yeah. Mostly it was buying them.
Okay, so you were
But
buying back
they also
slaves.
yeah were buying back slaves. They brought them back, and we paid these slave retrievers, these Arab Muslim slave retrievers. We paid them $40 per head because they spent money doing it. They had to feed them on the way. It was okay. Well, when
And they
this
would
stuff
bring them back to the South.
they bring them back to the South, And I started by telling you how emotional I got with Martin Luther King's words. Let me tell you,
Yes.
10 times more when I witnessed the redemption. Okay, because
Wow.
I flew into a war zone because this was a jihad. This was a war zone, and we were protected by the black SPLA, the Southern People's Sudan People's Liberation Army, because they fought, the blacks fought back. Actually, they won. This is another great story. They won,
Mm.
um, but we were protected by them. I flew in 3 times. And I went with John Eibner and the Christian Solidarity International, and we would march half a day to under this huge shade tree in the desert, this huge shade tree. Hundreds of slaves would be there, women, a few little boys, but mostly women and girls were there. Okay. And John brought the money. And there's scenes of him
Wow.
paying back, paying. And at the end, and they photographed each of the slaves and they interviewed many of them.
Were they
Um,
shackled up as they were bringing back?
They
Like
were
how,
not
what did they
no,
look
they were not
like?
they were not shackled up. They didn't know what they weren't sure whether these people bringing them back were actually telling the truth that they were going to be liberated, right? You can imagine you're there. There's an Arab guy is buying you, going to bring you back somewhere saying you're going to be free. Maybe, maybe
Yeah.
not. They didn't know, right? But they had marks. They had scars. They had stories to tell, and I interviewed many of them. We have it on film. I can give you the film. Interviewed many of them about how their girls were raped and how they got pregnant and how they wanted to make them change their names from an African name to an Arab name. And it's terrible. So there
So
they were.
these women and girls, when they were being redeemed, and coming back to the South, but they had no husbands to come back to.
Some did, and in fact,
Some
there's
did.
one. I remember one very poignant story of this woman who was impregnated by her master, her Arab master, and she wondered if her husband was going to love her and love the boy. What are they going to do with what are
Yeah.
they going to do with the child? Right? This
Mm-hmm.
is a classic war story. You can this that scenario happens in a lot of wars. World War II is, but and it turned out it was a very nice story because the husband loved her and he took it was a nice story. But there was some not I'm sure there were not some not nice stories. Um,
Right.
so I'm there, and and John Eibner is speaking through a Dinka translator. I have this on film. I'll show it to you. We could play it during this thing if you want. Uh, John Eibner is talking through a Dinka translator. You are now free. Don't think if they made you do bad things, which we know what they made him do, right?
Yeah.
Um, I have 2 daughters. So, and he would say to them, if they made you do bad things, it's not you, it's them. It's
Mm.
not you, it's them. And you are now free, and people paid money. You must be blessed because God helped us bring you back. I mean,
Yeah.
that was, yeah.
Do you know some of the things that they made them do?
Well, I mean, you can imagine they were sex slaves, you know. I
Yeah.
know, yeah. I mean, Francis Bach, um, who was a boy, they took, usually they didn't want boys anywhere near puberty because then they might be strong and a threat. And if they did take boys and they got near puberty, they would slit their throats. But Francis was
Ooh.
very lucky. He was very talented. He was he was made to be a goat herd, and he tried to escape 3 times. And when you tried to escape, there's a very famous picture of this Jewish girl from Israel who was taken and thrown into a truck during October 7th. And you can
Yes.
see at the bottom of her heel,
Nama
just
Levy.
Nama Levy, Nama
Hmm.
Levy's heel was slit, and her Achilles heel was slit, so she couldn't run. That's what they always have done to slaves, and that's what they did or threatened to do to run people they think would be runaway slaves. So it's just an amazing connection between what they did to Nama Levy and what they did or threatened to do to. I mean, I have pictures of people in Sudan with their arms cut off and with their, So we talk about Black Jewish alliance. I mean, it's the jihad can make a Black Jewish alliance right there. Um, so I was very emotional. I once bought my last trip in 2011. I brought a rabbi from Boston University, Hillel. He was the Hillel rabbi, Rabbi Pollack. He was an amazing guy. And when we were doing this, it was at Passover. We were redeeming the
Wow.
slaves at Passover, right? What else is a Jewish boy supposed to do at Passover, right? So
Wow, these slaves were being redeemed during Passover?
redeemed at Passover, right? So the rabbi, and I have it on film, you could see it. He brought matzah, and he said to them through the Dinka translator, "Listen, we had the same experience. God freed us, God freed you,
Mm.
and we remember every year. We relive it." Right, we rehearse it it's kind of a psychodrama of the Seder table, right?
Yes.
We rehearse it, what happens. So
Yes, that's a good way to put it.
yeah,
Yes.
so I want to give you the matzah that we had, just so you remember, because we that makes us remember we were slaves because we didn't have really good bread, so we had this matzah stuff, right? So you see pictures of these freed slaves, women, mostly women, eating the matzah, and
Wow.
I'll never forget that. So these are some of the experiences that I've had. Now, what happened eventually, and this is something also not many people know. George Bush, was president, and he heard about the slavery in Sudan through his church members because we were a big movement then. We had a lot of people talking about this all over, especially when Farrakhan hit us. That was the best piece of PR we ever could have got because people love to cover fights.
Yes.
Um, so George Bush heard about this and he forced Khartoum, that's the capital in the north. He said, you have to let the people in South Sudan decide their own fate. And he forced them to have what you call a plebiscite. They could vote on whether they wanted to stay as part of Sudan or to make a new country and split off. And
Mm.
99.9% split off. That happened in 2011. That happened right after I came back my second time. And
Did
so South,
slavery end at that time in
well,
Sudan or no? Okay.
so first of all, um, well, the slave raids ended because the war ended, but they still had 30,000 that they kept, and they're still there, and people are working on getting them out. They're still there. 30,000 of them are still there. The last we heard, 30,000. There's nobody has great statistics on any of this stuff, but that's what the people in South Sudan think and thought. So South Sudan is the world's newest nation because of an abolitionist movement that was made from blacks and Jews. Okay,
That's beautiful.
that's beautiful. Now, fast forward 20 years, where we are now. Um, the jihad has spread throughout Africa. There's now 11 countries where the same stuff is happening to blacks, right?
Mm.
Some is happening from Arab Berbers, some is happening from Arabs, some is happening from African Muslims against African non-Muslims. Okay.
Right.
So I get a phone call from a man named Stephen Enata, who is the leader of the Nigerian American community here. There's maybe 1 million Nigerians who live in America. They're, by the way, very successful doctors, lawyers, pharmacists, businessmen. And he says to me, I know what you did for Sudan. You got to do it now for Nigeria. I said, wow, I'm a little older. It's a whole different story. People are, he says, we have to have a Black Jewish alliance. And I said, an African Jewish alliance, he said.
African Jewish Alliance.
He said, I said, well, I mean, I like the idea. It's much more complicated than it was. He says, I know, but you got to help us do it. So that's how we started the African Jewish Alliance. We have Dumasani, Washington. We have people from Nigeria. We have people from Mauritania. We have people from the Igbos, a tribe in Nigeria. Um, uh, and now I
And
want to
is
I
the
want to just
mission of the African Jewish Alliance to help to continue to free slaves, to fight
well
jihad in Africa?
to organize all of the people of goodwill to understand that it's been made taboo to criticize anything Arab or Islamic. You're not allowed to say anything taboo. So, and the left buys that. Why do they buy that?
Yes.
Because of this thing called intersectionality, which says all the minorities in America, they're the same, being oppressed by the same white patriarchy and now also the Jews. So they can't criticize each other. And so
How how critical is it for Christians to get into this fight and to understand what's happening to the Christian population, Black Christian population in Africa by jihadists? I know right now we're talking about how it pertains to Israel and Hamas, but no one's really talking about the slaughtering of
right. Okay.
Christians or
Okay.
focused on it at all.
Not at all, because of this block called Islamophobia. If you say it, you're a racist against Muslims, which is baloney because it has nothing to do with race at all.
Mm,
It has nothing to do. And it may be that Arabs and Muslims are minorities in this country, and it may be that they got prejudice against them in this country. Okay. But they're certainly not the minority oppressed in Africa. So you're
right,
giving them a free hand to go slaughter people because you don't want to say anything that's going to be seen as prejudiced in the American context. That's the
right.
stupidest thing ever. That's the stupidest thing. So I have a list here of like 11 countries in Africa. Each one of them has their own little Hamas, and they call them by a different name. So in Nigeria, it's called Boko Haram, called the
Mm-hmm.
Fulani. You know, in Algeria, it's Al-Qaish of the Maghreb. In Cameroon, it's ISWAP, the Islamic State Western African Province. In Egypt, it's called the Islamic State in Sinai. In Mali, it's called the Jama al Nusrat al Islam, something else. In Nigeria, in Niger, it's called ISGS. So in Sudan, it's called now the Rapid Support Forces. I mean, so all of these Islamist groups are doing the exact same thing that they have done in Sudan and that they're trying to do to Israelis. So there's the basis. If you're just a decent person, you cannot shut up about what this evil that's happened just because you want to be part of the intersectional crowd in America. That's a sin. And in fact, you're betraying the very people that the left first got its halo over, right? First became the community of good because it helped blacks. Now you're going to betray blacks. This is
Mm.
horrible. So we're working as hard as we can to get this out. We have a great team of social media people. We have people from Africa living here, speaking out across the land, and people should help us. It's a terrible thing. And if you're Christian and you don't know that jihad is coming for you after it comes for us, you're making a big mistake. Look what's happening in Europe. You're making a big mistake. So wake
Charles,
up and do the right thing.
are you following what's happening kind of with certain conservative pundits, commentators, such as like Carlson,
Right.
as a such, and putting lots of emphasis on Israel and the Jews and what we're doing
Right.
wrong. And a lot of these people profess to be Catholics and Christians, but are not blaming or calling to the stage what's happening with Islamists and the Christian population, and even talking about what's happened to the Christian population in the Middle East and how
Right.
it's almost pretty much non-existent. but always seemingly turning things back on Israel, saying that we're
Right,
persecuting Christians in Israel, you know, or in Syria, that we're
right,
responsible
right,
for
right.
the lack of, Christians in Christianity and things like this. Where do you think that this is coming from, and what truths do people really need to know about what's happening with the Islamists and Christians?
So, well, for the truth of Islamists and Christians, just go on X any day and or Google Islam in Europe. Where there are gang rapes of British Christian girls by Pakistanis. I mean, this is now Europe's about to explode. But let me get to your question about people like Tucker Carlson. So there's always been anti-Semitism. It's kind of floating under the surface, no matter where. Um, and Tucker Carlson is part of the Republican Party that's isolationist. They
Yes.
don't want to have, America only, America first, America only. I mean, it's in other words, he might not have gone and fought World War II if he didn't think the Japanese were going to come. We don't
Yeah.
care what happens to the rest of the world. Let it go, whatever. It doesn't matter as long as they don't hurt us. Well, it doesn't work that way. The world doesn't work that way because once these dictators, whether it be right wing or left wing or Islamic, get going in the rest of the world, they certainly going to have an eye on us, right? That's always the way it's been. So anyway, so J.D. Vance and Tucker Carlson and others in the Republican Party are for isolationism, and they think that Israel is pulling America into a war for its own sake. That's always been something that anti-Semites have said as well. Um, it's not for its own sake. I mean, if you think that when Iran, God forbid, Iran gets the nuclear weapon and wipes out the Jews of Israel, God forbid, you don't think they got a suitcase bomb heading into New York? You don't
Right.
think they're going to have that same missile heading toward Paris? I mean, what are you, nuts? So it's not just for us, although you should treat allies good, but it is also
Right.
for America.
When we
Um,
say that, they say we're fear mongering the people. Why,
Well,
why do they
I
think
mean,
that's
you
a
should
fear
be, you
monger?
should be, you should be mongered. You should
Yeah.
be afraid.
Yeah.
What do you mean? There are these guys, these crazy people who think that what is it? The seventh imam is going to come back, who is dead, is going to come back, and they're nuts. They're nuts, and they got the bomb. Come on, guy. You don't think you should be afraid of that? So
Right.
okay, I plead guilty. I want you to be afraid of that for your own sake.
Yeah.
Uh, so, but so I'm very annoyed at the Republican Party for not kicking them out. 2 generations ago, we had a guy named William F. Buckley, who was the intellectual leader of the conservative movement, and he kicked out all those neo-Nazi, anti-Jewish people. He just kicked them out. So I don't know. I haven't had a debate with Tucker. I would love to do it, but it's anti-Semitism is a virus that is. We don't have an antidote for it. We don't have a preventative for it. It's going to be there, and we have to fight it on the left, on the right, and Islam
Mm.
under the jihadist movement.
As an American Jew,
Because we're
uh,
going to be, by the way, just we're the little David. We got 14 million maybe Jews in the world. Muslims got 1.5 billion people. You're going to tell me that I'm not? We're the ones who need valiant supporters, brave, courageous people who go with the little guy because we're the little guy right now in this big game.
right. As an American Jew, especially seeing, the murder that just happened, the two murders that just happened in DC of the young couple, the young Israeli couple, do you think that the United States of America will become a place where American Jews need to flee from and go to Israel? Or do you believe that the US could never fall in that type of way?
I think Jewish life has changed forever in America because of the possibility that this can happen. I mean, every Jewish institution has now got security. And when I grew up, you just walked to synagogue and it was fine. Now I have to go through, policemen, undercover people. People in the synagogue have guns. They've trained. It's much less likely that somebody's going to get hurt inside a synagogue, I think, than leaving that protected area and going home, like what happened to these two beautiful people. I mean,
Hmm.
they were in the place that was protected and they walked home, and this murderer shot them 25 times as they were trying to crawl away. So I think Jewish life in America has changed, and we should do another podcast about this book I wrote behind me, how a lot of this has to do with the failure of Jewish leaders to protect us and defend us because they were that's another whole podcast worth. We
Yes,
could
I would love to do that a second time because I think it's a big topic when we think about big organizations like, the ADL and the leadership there, et cetera. And
complete failure, complete
yeah.
failure. They wanted to be at the table. They wanted to. They sold us out, basically. I mean, they were wrong about what they thought this was all happening, and they didn't want to fight. And they're also cowards. They got it wrong. They're greedy, and they want to be at the big tables with the guys. They don't want to have confrontations with the White House or whatever. And they're cowards. So with those three
Mm.
things, so we wrote this book, which is a collection of essays, has Alan Dershowitz in it, has other famous people, but also activists on the ground, and they explained why and how the Jewish leadership organizations failed us. And that's why we have to do the right thing and form organizations that do what Jews should be doing. One is the African Jewish Alliance, and there's others. But that's a topic for another time,
Another episode.
another episode, if you like.
Yes. Oh, of course. Tell the people how they can support the African Jewish Alliance.
So they have to go to africanjewishalliance.org, and you can see all of our stuff that uh, documents everything I've said. You can see interviews with escaped slaves. You can see legal documents, other documents, scenes of, and we have videos there that we really should put a warning on because we have some stuff there that what happens to Africans during the jihad. That's just like the stuff that you would see on October 7th. No different,
Mm.
just the same stuff. So that they should go there, and we're part of a 501c3, so people can make donations that are tax deductible right there. You can do it through PayPal. You can send a check. It's all explained. You can have me come speak to your Zoom group. I might be able to bring an escaped slave with me, so the two of us could have a conversation with your group. Um, and you should tell people about this.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your hard work. Charles, can you leave us with one critical piece of information that you think everyone should know and a critical action that should be taken by everyone, whether you're a Jew or not a Jew, black, etc.
Well, I think that people are afraid to say the truth, but the truth is that there's a worldwide movement that is somewhat religiously based, that believes it should take over the world in the name of Allah. And it's a very violent movement at times, not all the time, very violent movement at times. And it's aimed first at the Jews because we're the most vulnerable target, and we get them really angry more than other people because we actually took back a piece of our land from them. But and right after us, they have a saying: first the Saturday people, then the Sunday people.
Yep.
And they're doing the Sunday people right now in Africa. And if you think that you are a good, virtuous person who comes from the left of center, and you're a human rights person, and you are silent about the massacre, not just the slavery, but the massacre that's ongoing against black people in Africa, and you want to be silent about that, God rest your soul. I mean, God help you because this is the wrong time. That's the wrong thing to be silent about. And I'll leave it at that. Don't ever be silent about that.
Charles, thank you so much for coming on the Black and Jewish podcast. I look forward to reading your books and engaging more with the African Jewish Alliance. But I just really want to thank you for your time and educating us about slavery in Africa and what's happening to the Black slaves there.
Okay. Ashira. Shalom.
Lay throats.
Ahit out.
All right, you guys, that is a wrap on this week's episode. Please like, comment, and share. Comment down below. Did you know that slavery is happening in Africa? Did you know about the Black slavery happening there? And did you learn something new? I will see you next week. Bye for now.